This story begins in 2013. I was 6 years old. I lived in a house, and in front of my house there was a school. That school was really nice, and I studied there. Since I was still in my first year there, right? It was my first year in all the elementary school years. There was a boy who sat next to me, and he was super cute. He had kind of rosy cheeks, he was fair-skinned, and he had straight black hair. Honestly, his hair kind of shined, you know? Even though I was only 6 years old, I thought his hair was really beautiful, but I was really shy to talk to him. So we only talked about the basics, you know, just some things related to school. And with the year being so busy, right? As the year went by, we started becoming a little closer. We talked a bit more. We got closer during games, activities, and especially on the famous Toy Fridays, which we still had in the first grade. So we used to trade toys. We got closer, and he was really in his own world. Let's be honest, he didn't pay much attention to me, but that's okay. And by the way, the teacher loved him because he was such a good boy, you know? But then the year went by, and in the middle of the next year, my mom decided to transfer me to another school. Just like that. I was already in my second year, right? So I studied at that school for quite a while. And it was a neighborhood right in the city center, in the downtown area where all the best shops were, right? The best little shops, restaurants, pharmacies, hospitals. It was really busy, so the school was really nice and it was really good. In my third year, I remember that I stayed at that busy school, and I loved it. It was super nice. I made friends right away. I experienced so many amazing things there. I didn't even remember the boy with the rosy cheeks anymore. You know, no, because I had studied with him in the first year. I was already in my third. I was living my life, and then I was washing my hands. I was washing my hands in front of a bathroom, and I felt a tap. It was really funny. I felt a tap on my shoulder, and when I looked back, it was him. And he said to me, "I know you from somewhere." I got really embarrassed and said to him, "I know you from somewhere too." We laughed and kept going, but I didn't get that flash that it was from first grade, you know, from elementary school. Anyway, after that, we just greeted each other with a simple hi and stuff. Because he wasn't in my class, he was in another class. So we barely talked, we barely had any contact, we barely spent any time together. Like that. Then the year went by, time went by, the years went by, and suddenly he and I ended up in the same classroom. There, I was in my fifth year, in fifth grade, and it was really funny because that was when we became the closest friends. So we sat next to each other and we were from the church. And since we were Christians, it was funny because we had that in common. We talked about religion, we talked about our parents, things like that, you know? There was even a time when the teacher was doing a dictation and she said the word devil, and he and I started stomping our feet, saying that we weren't going to write that word in our notebooks, that it was a cursed word and that we were from the church and that this wasn't going to work. Our parents would get mad at us, and we used to copy things from each other's notebooks. We exchanged books, we talked a lot, we shared a lot of ideas. We got really close, like we became really, really, really good friends. And then came the terrible news that devastated me at the time. My mom was transferred to work in another city. And we would have to move to another city. I love that school, the teachers, my friends, that friendship, you know? The little downtown, the city, the people. I was so happy there. I couldn't believe what was happening. I was really upset. And off we went, my mom and I. We moved to another city. We changed cities and spent 6 months living in another state. Long story short, it didn't work out. My mom's transfer there didn't go through. We had to come back. And honestly, I know moving is expensive. My mom may have even taken a loss, but I was so happy with the news that we were coming back. But when I came back, I still went through 2 more schools before I actually stayed at the school I was supposed to start my 6th, 7th, and 8th grades, right? And during that period of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, it was a very big school, a school with a lot of people from kindergarten all the way to high school. There were a lot of people, there were many playgrounds, there were many classrooms, there were a lot of people. And I was kind of living my life at that time. I was already with my friends. I was older. I was turning 14, almost 15 years old. And I started a serious relationship, right, with a boy. It was a very toxic relationship. It was a complicated relationship, a difficult relationship, full of jealousy, fights, possessiveness, and obsession. And I have to talk about this relationship in another video, but I couldn't break up with him, you know? I couldn't break up. I couldn't say no to him. It was very hard. I had already been in a relationship for 2 years, and this was in 2020 when I started this relationship. It was during the pandemic, and I couldn't break up. 2 years later, right, when I was almost going into my third year, it was 2022 World Cup year. School had already gone back after the pandemic. And then I was walking around the little downtown, the famous little downtown near where I studied, and there was a store which was right in front of the school where I studied. When I moved from the school to the little downtown, which was about sports, and this store had already existed since I studied there. So it was kind of known for having athletes' clothes, you know? And I really wanted to buy a Brazil t-shirt so I could watch the game, so I decided to go there. When I walked into the store, who do I run into but the boy with the rosy cheeks? The moment I saw him, I think I turned rosy too. I was so embarrassed. I stood there for about 15 seconds just frozen because a flash came to my mind like a memory. He looked different. He was taller. I looked at his dad's face and everything. I was so embarrassed at that moment. And since I was dating someone, you know, so I felt even more embarrassed, but I admit that my relationship was terrible. It was a mess. When I saw him, I felt something. My heart, like something moved inside me, you know. For a moment, I was happy, but then, oops, I have a relationship, so I pulled back. I was really embarrassed. I remember I grabbed the first Brazil shirt, paid for it, put it in the bag, and left kind of like that, still a bit stunned by what was happening. I got home and realized I had bought a size large shirt, and I promised myself I would never set foot there again because I was so embarrassed. I said I'd wear the large shirt now and later gift it to someone since I'm not going back. And as unbelievable as it may seem, 2 months after that happened, I managed to break up with my boyfriend, you know? I managed to say it, not just say enough, but actually say goodbye. My relationship is over. Thank God I was able to end that relationship. And then the year 2024 arrived. I was already 17 years old. I was already, like, whether I wanted to or not, maturing and all. I had been separated for a while, and my family, like I said, we were part of the church. I remember at school when we studied together that his family was from those traditional churches, but the church that my parents and I attended was a contemporary church. The doctrines are a little different, and there was the launch of a new church in our city. There was a meeting, a presentation, right? And I didn't expect his family to go because, as I said, they were traditional and I thought they would never change churches. Well, we went to the church, we were sitting there, and I was with my cousin by my side. And then we were just there watching the presentation. When the pastor calls a man to go up front, guess who the man is? His father. Right away, I remembered the store I went into where I saw his father. I remembered his face. I said, that's the boy's father, and he started talking about his 2 sons, but he was talking about his 2 sons.
Eu lembro que eu virei para minha prima.
And I thought, but he has another son, so he's going to talk about the 3rd son, right? Because his 3rd son studied with me. Then, just as I said that, his father began talking about the 3rd son. The moment he said the name, guys, it was like hearing a movie, a flash in my head. The name from the times the teacher called attendance, the times I talked to him, the times we were together back when I was 6 years old, when we studied in 3rd grade, when we studied in 5th grade, it all just flashed in my mind. And I said, oh my God, it's him, I swear. I became anxious to leave because I wanted to look him up on social media. I got home, opened my Instagram right away, started looking for him on social media, found him, sent a follow request, he accepted, and followed me back. And we started talking and kept talking. We became really good friends and started going to church together. I was in my last year of high school. He was also in his last year of high school. We graduated and we kind of started going out. So it wasn't an official relationship, but everyone knew we were together. Our parents, people from church, people from school, our mutual friends. Everyone knew something was going on between us, and there really was. It wasn't official yet, and we ended up meeting. And because of the launch of this church, our parents met each other. So our parents were already in contact. And the day before I started college, he went to my house. I was 18 years old, and he asked my parents for permission to date me. And that's when we started dating. He started college with me, and now here we are. We're going to college together. We love our story. We have a lot of plans. As soon as we finish college, we want to get married, really get engaged, and then get married, have our own house, have our own plans. We're very down to earth, very determined, and there's something he tells me that I think is really cool. Remember when I got back from my trip? I got back from my trip, right? When my mom moved to another city, we moved back to the city, and I studied at 2 schools and switched to a really big school. He studied there too. But he said he didn't have the courage to go talk to me because I was always there with my friends, with people. But every day he watched me and he never forgot who I was, not my name nor me. But since I wasn't on the same vibe because I was really just living my day-to-day life. I didn't really notice him there. So yes, we studied at the same school, even when the school was a real school, that huge school with a lot of people. He was there and he saw me, he knew who I was, he followed me with his eyes. In other words, in practically every school I studied at, he studied there too. And it's really nice when we have a childhood story, when you've known someone since you were little. So today we call each other childhood sweethearts. We love our story, and we always say that the best story that ever happened in our lives was our love story. Hi, my cat guys. What a light, sweet, and cute story, seriously. You're in college, engaged to a guy you look over at. Do you remember that shine in your hair from when you were 6 years old? Did you already admire that shine? It's a story that should be shared as a form of inspiration to show that true love still exists, to show that yes, it does exist. The possibility of you falling in love and having a relationship and having a love life, having a first love and getting married and being happy with your first love. Okay, she took a little detour there. She dated for 2 years in a toxic relationship, and sometimes that toxic relationship was the passport for her to move on to a healthy one. You know, there's a phrase from a song that says, you only know what's good when you've experienced what's bad. So, unfortunately, there are many people who need to experience what it's like not to be valued so they can later understand how to demand their own worth. And I hope you are very happy. I hope you get married. I hope you send me stories about your relationship, about your marriage, updates about your life, and that you are very happy. Leave a message in the comments. If you would live a love like this, if you would marry someone like this, if you have a relationship like this, send me your story. If you also married your childhood love. On To Post Stories channel, like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you in the next video.